So this is Bat Face Cuphea. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this plant or not, but it's turned into one of my backyard favorites. And I'll just kind of show. Hopefully you can tell how big it is. I mean, I've got these metal boxes in my yard, and it pretty much covers up the boxes, so it's turned into a good cover plant. That's an azalea in front of it. It's bigger than the azalea. But I just want to show what's fun about this plant is it's got these little blooms that are kind of a purple and red, and they look like little bat faces. Let's see if I can get a good one in here for you. I can get the camera to focus on them. Anyway, what's great about this plant, I've had this plant for not even a year, probably about 8 months. I started it off in a pot. It did great in a pot in the shade, and then it got so big I had to get it into the ground. So I threw it in the ground, and I do absolutely nothing with it. It takes sun pretty much all day long in temperatures that are anywhere from 90 to 100 degrees. Very rarely do I water it. I just let it get whatever natural rainwater it gets, from the regular weather. But anyway, what I want to do on this video is I want to show how easy it is to propagate this. So I'm going to try to switch cameras here, and I'm going to sneak in, and I'm just going to take some cuttings. And basically I use my regular pruning shears, but you can use scissors. I mean, this stuff is very thin, and I'll show you. I just kind of get like a little stalk, few inches, about like so. I'm going to do 6 of these. There's one. Let's do another one here. I try and get them straight. If there's a little curve to them, that's not a huge deal. There's 2. We'll get this guy. Any of these that are long. I mean, this plant, it needed to be cut anyway, which is why I'm kind of showing this. It gives me a reason to get out here and prune it. But I'm going to do 6. We'll just keep kind of taking from this side. I try and cut right above a leaf. So if you look, I get my scissors right above the leaf, take another cut, and then we'll do this guy over here. It's pretty long. Get right above the leaf, give it a cut, and now we're going to take these over. I'm going to just take these over to this pot, and I'll show you what I do with them next. So just bear with me 1 second. Alright, so here's all my cuttings. And all I really do is just take that fresh cutting, and I go ahead and strip the leaves off the bottom. And I would recommend, I go ahead and use the scissors just to get good cuts on it. But if there's any kind of little note on there, maybe I'll leave it. But for the most part, I'm just sitting here cutting everything off the bottom of this plant, just to where I've got a nice long stalk. I think that's pretty good. And this is a plant, from what I can tell so far, it's been very forgiving. It's not like it's very picky. Like I said, even when it comes to growing it, I think you can put it in a container and grow it in a container. You can obviously throw it in the ground. It's supposed to be pretty cold hardy, at least to freezing. Now once it gets to a hard freeze, I think it is a little bit tender, but I think as long as you're above freezing, it's not going to mind the winter months. And again, when it comes to summer, that's probably my favorite part about it, is it has not cared at all about the heat of the summer, and it handles drought pretty well. As also, we'll go several weeks without rain. It doesn't seem to care about that either. And again, all I'm doing, and hopefully you can see this, it's kind of a hard, it's so small it's hard to focus on, I'm sure. I'm just cleaning this up. Trying to get good clean cuts as much as I can, but it's not perfect. This plant is supposed to attract hummingbirds, butterflies, and bees. I've only seen bees go to it, but I will say we've got a big black bee. I'm not sure what type of bee it is, bumblebee I'm assuming, but a big black bee that's on these things all morning long. We haven't really hit hummingbird season yet, so I'm not sure if the hummingbirds are going to be going to it or not. But it definitely is a fan favorite of the bees. And again, we haven't really hit butterfly season either, so I'm not sure, I can't really speak to the butterfly part of it. Got this one leaf that's giving me a little bit of trouble, and then we're going to be ready to go. Okay, so I've got all these cleaned out. Now all that I do is I take This is Take Root rooting hormone. I would imagine you can use any kind of rooting hormone you can find from the store. This came from one of our local big box stores. All I do is I take one of these cuttings, dip it in water, dip it in rooting hormone, kind of shake the rooting hormone off a little bit, and then I just take this and stick it straight into this container and just cover it with whatever kind of potting soil I'm using. And this is not very good potting soil, it's just old soil that I found, but it should work. Again, dip it in water, dip that bottom in rooting hormone, knock the rooting hormone off, dig you a little hole in your potting soil, put the potting soil around there. I'm going to do the rest of these other 6. The last thing I'm going to do though is I am going to take a little misting bottle and get them. I usually use that just so I don't wash off all the soil, but anyway, you definitely want to get this wet, and then I would keep it wet. And then the other thing that I would recommend is I definitely would not put these in any kind of full sun. I'll take this container and I will, for the most part, just keep it in a shady area that gets some bright light. You know, it's right at the edge of where it would hit sun, but it's in a spot where it gets a lot of bright light, it gets a lot of humidity, and then I just keep it moist. I make sure it's not flooded or anything like that. Make sure the soil, like right now that soil is really dry, but I'll make sure it's nice and moist, and then I'll wait for about a week, 10 days or so, and then I'm going to pull these out and we're going to take another look at them. And again, I don't know how much rooting hormone most people normally use. I just get them good and covered and just throw them into this container. So you can see they're all in the middle, and then again I'm gonna mist this down and get it wet, and then we will check them in about a week and see how they're doing in terms of growing roots. And again, this is the quick job for the purpose of this video, but I try and get them nice in the middle, and then again, the only thing I'm going to do is keep them wet and keep them out of the full sun, and then we'll do a follow-up. So I'd mentioned before misting these down. I'm just using a little small misting bottle, and I just basically spray these nice and heavy from the top. I don't try and really flood them, but the container that I'm using actually does have drain holes in the bottom of it, so I really don't worry too much about flooding. If I overwater them, that water is going to drain out of the bottom. But the idea here is I want to get them good and wet up front, and then once I've got them wet, I just kind of want to make sure that they're packed in nice and tight. And again, this is not good potting mix at all. This is kind of like just whatever I could find that I had that was left over from another plant or just excess that I had. But the point of this video is I really wanted to show how easy it is to propagate this plant and grow more of them with cuttings. To me, it was just kind of cool. I mean, you're talking about a plant that can take heat, that can take cold, that attracts butterflies, hummingbirds, bees, and is also you know, semi-evergreen if you're in a pretty warm climate, and gives you flowers that are multicolor. So to me, it's just a great little plant that you can, you know, you can have one of them in your yard, and then you can just keep growing multiple cuttings and have as many of them as you want. You can use it as a spiller, as like an accent in some of your maybe some of your other containers or flower beds. So to me, it's just a pretty versatile plant. But the point of this is I want to show just, you know, get it wet, keep it moist, and then I'm going to come back to this in about 7 days, and we're going to see how fast it grows roots. But once you put that rooting hormone on it and keep it wet, and again, keep it out of the sun so it doesn't fry in the sun, you'll see in about 7 days these things are going to have plenty of roots on them and be ready to move into a bigger container and move into the ground. So again, we'll check back here in a week and see what it looks like. Okay, so it's been about 8.5 days since I planted these cuttings. I'm just going to show you. I went ahead and removed one of them just for whatever reason. It wasn't staying upright, and I think I had too small of a cutting, so I pulled it out. This one looks like it didn't make it. These other 4, though, look pretty good. But I'm going to show after almost 9 days, I'm going to go ahead and pry these things out of here, and we'll see if they've developed any kind of roots. Now, you would probably want to let these root for much longer, but just for the purposes of this video, I just wanted to show how fast they start taking root in just a short amount of time. So I'm not sure if you can see at the bottom of this, here's the bottom of our cutting, but you can see there's already some roots starting to develop here. on the bottom side. I'm going to stick this one back in, and we're going to look at another one. Let's take out the one next to it and see how it's doing, if it's about the same. And then I guess what I would probably do is, if you wanted to transplant these to a bigger pot at this point, I think you'd be okay. Or again, maybe give it a few more days, keep it in for about 2 weeks in this. But then once they start developing roots, I mean, you're in good shape now. You can take them out, you've got roots starting, and go ahead and put them in whatever container you want, where you can let them grow and develop from there. So anyway, just wanted to show, after a little over a week, that's how fast they start to root with that rooting hormone. So if you have any questions, if there's anything else I can answer about trying to root Bat Face Cuphea, please feel free to ask, and I'd be happy to try and answer them for you. If this video helped you out, I'd appreciate it if you could hit the like button, and feel free to subscribe as well if you'd like. Thanks again.